Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. I do apologize about the choppiness of that video. Hopefully most of it was playable. But my name is Jim Schultens, a system engineer here at Verify, and I'll be your host for today's workshop. Today we're joined by my good friend Dre Divock, another SE over here at Verify, and he's going to talk about a new feature coming out in EFT 13 called database archiving. Dre, how you doing today, bud?
Doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Awesome, doing great. All right. So we're going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. Next, Dre will lead us into a live demo to show us how to configure database archiving and show how it works. We'll pause for some Q&A and get some of your questions answered. During the demo, if you do have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right screen. After Q&A, we'll reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around and see if you've won. All right. Quick overview of Verify. Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR, UCCX, and Cube call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, remote phone control, and change management. But today we're going to focus on the new database archiving feature in Verify. If you have any other questions on any of our other features, please feel free to chat me up in the QA panel on the bottom right side. One more thing before we kick things off. For those of you looking for a more hands-off Verify experience, we do offer a managed consulting service. This is a service that provides a dedicated Verify SE to do all the heavy lifting, giving you and your users a completely hands-off experience. Think of us as an extension of your organization. For those of you who have seen this slide before, we've removed the ninja from the name, but kept the same great service. It provides upgrades, one-on-one training, report and dashboard building. Your dedicated Verify systems engineer has you covered. The only thing you have to do is give us a call or send an email. If you want additional information on our ECS service, feel free to reach out to your account manager. We'd be happy to see if ECS is right for you. All right, with all that said, Dre, are you ready to lead us into the wild, show us all about this database archiving feature?
I am ready, Jim.
All right.
Thank you, Jim, for the introduction. Once again, my name is Dre. Oh, yep, no worries. My name is Dre. I'm with the systems engineering team. Today, we're going to be talking about our newest and highly requested feature coming to our version 13 of Verify, and that's going to be database archiving. I'm not going to bore you too much with too many slides, but wanted to show you some examples of what our options are currently before we actually get into the database archiving. Currently, Verify has two ways of associating a database to a cluster: using a single database to house all your data, or creating multiple, let's call them dummy clusters, to simulate multi-database support. I would think most of our customers use a single database to house all of their desired CDR per cluster. If you're using the multi-cluster solution, that means changing the cluster view each time you need to look at an older range of data, which can become cumbersome and time-consuming. But like I said, would say most of our CDR customers retain all of their desired CDR data in a single database per cluster. For those with high call volume or long retention windows, which could be for compliance reasons, some of our customers have 5+ years of data, these CDR databases can grow to many million rows, which require heavy system resources to achieve acceptable performance when running reports or dashboards. This means throwing more resources at your database server to keep reporting time performance at its best. But for many of you, you're probably not regularly reporting on data more than 6 months old, which means you're searching for data on a large database that could range many years when you only need to query a couple weeks or months of data. This is where database archiving comes in. In our 13 version, we're now able to create hot and cold data storage, which means you could set up archive databases in monthly or yearly increments And you would only be searching on that database on the range that you have requested, whether that be reports or dashboards or more current data. Let's say you want to run a report for a month of March. With database archiving, we would only query on that database that has the month of March in its CDR data, which means faster reporting and dashboards and less stress and resource allotment on the database server. All right, let's get the slides out of the way and we'll head over to the Verify GUI, where we're going to show you some changes to the cluster screen and how to turn on database archiving. Let me move this WebEx window out the way. All right. So here we are at the Verify GUI. If we go look at our CUCM clusters on the right here, you can see that this page has changed a little bit. On this Manage page, you're going to see all your clusters. Let's dive into the Manage section of the Dre Test cluster. Here you're going to see your basics again: server host, authentication, time zones, rate tables, log analysis, things like that. It's going to be kind of simple, easy, manageable stuff. But we wanted to separate this out because there's a lot on one page. So if we head over to our next tab, separated this out. So now the CDR processing tab is going to be in its own tab here. So if we go dive in here to the Dre Test one, you're going to see where your file directory is, where those CUCM CDR records are coming to from the call manager, your processing time, and if you're preserving any files. And then we go into our database processing. This is where your current database would be currently on the database you have. This is where you would enable the database archiving, but we'll come back to that here in a minute. And then you're going to have all your purge settings and your monitoring settings if you have those turned on. So then on the next tab here, you're going to see our sync tab. This is going to be that call manager sync. That's going to keep your your device names and users up to date with any changes within call manager. Now, if you have these, like we have these off right now, there's no last sync success. If you run a report with this turned off, they automatically sync. But this could be useful for larger customers that have a lot of info in the call manager to keep those up to date on a regular schedule. But then you could turn your sync on. You could run it here, and you can also import a sync and then schedule your sync over here to the right. So same thing that we had in our 12 version, just now on a separate tab. All right, now we're going to move over to our CDR databases. You can pick your cluster here. Let's go back to our Dre cluster. Excuse me. So here's the database that we have for that cluster. You're going to see the database server it's on, and it's going to be our primary and our available data. Don't worry about that. I don't know why it's that. We just have some dummy data in there to show some records. And it's going to tell you what the record count is. So if you have 5 years of data in there, it's going to show that available data as 5 years. All right. So pretty easy, pretty simple, just a little change there. But let's move on to what we're all here for, is that database archiving. If we go back to that CDR processing tab, go into that Dre test cluster. Excuse me. Like I said earlier, here is your actual database that you guys have created currently. Now, if you want to create that database archiving, you would just toggle this guy on. Pretty easy, right? You just turn that guy on and we're going. But there's some other stuff that we need to do in here. So we can set this up on a single server. So if you wanted to select that same database server, you could actually create that just by selecting a server you want. Either your whatever you have those named, that could be it. You would still receive some of the benefits of archiving if searching mostly for recent data, but have the choice to look at older data and keeping your compliance policy intact. Just be aware you could run into performance issues if you're continually running queries for longer date ranges. But the good news is we could spin up another MySQL server using our OVA and using that server just for your archive data. So we have this enabled. Let's select a database. Let's go ahead and use our 162. And we can give this a name. Dre_DB test. And we'll call this active. So then when you save this, I'm sorry, let's move on to the auto archiving here. Sorry, I got computer is running really weird right now. Okay. Alrighty, so we can now turn on our auto archiving. So we can set this up in monthly or yearly increments, right? So here, right now, leaving it at this setting, on January 1st, it's going to archive that active database. That active database gets written, so the CDR comes in, it's going to be written to both databases here. And this will be our purge database. So like here, we have everything's going to be purging at 1 month just for this primary database. But it's always going to be writing to both. Let's say, like I said, if we're going to run 12 months, we're going to run an archive for each month that this data gets written to. So the primary database and active archive would be writing database at the same time as your active archive. Then you would have your purge settings configured. It would purge the data in your primary, while your active archive would then wait for its configured auto archiving schedule, which in our case would be a month by month period. Then when that month passes, it would create an archive database called DreDB test_1. So it's going to append that number to it automatically when you have auto archiving scheduled. You would not be losing that data on this purge. It's only going to be purging that primary database, but just creating smaller databases of that archive data. And like I said, if you have monthly increments selected, you would have 12 archive databases for each month of the year. Or if you wanted to have yearly, or any kind of range, if you wanted to do quarterly, you could do that too by selecting the corresponding days and months. But then you would have one database per year. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I'm sure there's going to be some questions. So let's go ahead and save this guy. And that's going to then create our new active database, or active archive database, I guess you want to call it. So we'll wait for this guy to activate, and activate here, close there. All right, now we can go over to our CDR databases. Well, let's go back to our Dre test cluster. And now you're going to see from earlier, we just had that one primary database. But now we're going to have two databases. So now this is being written to that at the schedules that we saved. So if we did that month to month, we would have 12 different databases in here. And if I show you this one, this is going to make a little more sense here now that you could see these archives that are in there. And each one is going to show you your available date range and your record count in there as well. So setting up the auto archiving is pretty easy. Turn it on, set the schedule you want, and you're good to go. And that's going to be correlated to if you're just using that single database. Let's say you are running, like I said before, about the multi-clusters with multi-databases, and you're using dummy clusters to simulate, extra databases. We can actually manually archive these as well. So if we go back here, it doesn't really matter which one we're on for this test. But what we're going to do is first, before you turn on the auto archiving, you're going to want to go ahead and associate those existing databases. So you can actually click on this plus button over here to the right, select the database server that those older databases are on. And let's select one of these. We'll go down here, pick this guy, save it, boom. Now, we had data in there. It's going to show you a date range and that record count as well. And you can also remove that date. Let's say, oh, I put the wrong one in there. Well, you can remove this database pretty easily. It doesn't remove it from the SQL server itself. It just removes it from our association. So we can actually go ahead and remove that. Let's go back over here, talk about a little bit of this online and offline. These, you know, you can always keep these on, right? So it's never going to query these databases unless you're searching for that time range. So if this was a, you know, the month of March, it would just, when you run a report and you picked a date and within that month range, it's just gonna query that database. But you can't turn those off if you need to. Most of the time, I think you'll be able to keep those archived on. Another thing, if you do associate an archive that maybe has an older schema, and you update this guy, I think all of ours are updated, but if you associate, it might come up where it needs a schema update. There will be a button here too. So you can update that schema pretty easily. All right. What else do I have on here? Jim, we have any questions out there?
Yes, we do, Dre. A few of them came in. What is the maximum retention, or is there maximum retention?
I think our maximum is 7 years, right? I believe. Oh no, I'm sorry. 48 months. Thought we had this.
Yeah, I thought it was longer.
I did too. We are, like I said, this is
Well,
on a beta server.
you could
but
keep it forever. If you get it forever, then it's going to go forever.
Yeah, so our canned responses
It's
up to
unlimited.
48 months. Yeah, but you can keep forever, so you could keep data forever. I thought we used to have 7 years, but maybe not on this box.
And then as a follow-up to that, will it automatically remove data after so many days, months, or years?
From the archive database?
Yeah, from the archive,
So, okay,
yeah,
so from
you
the,
want to
it
cover
will
that?
not, yeah, it's not going to remove anything from the actual archived databases. It's just going to remove from your primary database. So, like I said, like once this, let's say we do, okay, let's say we have this set for a month, right? It's going to, after that month is gone, because it's going to be writing to both of these databases, this will be purged and start back at that new month. This active database will then turn into a archive database for that month and then start a new active archive database. Does that make sense? Here, I can show you in here a little bit. So let's say here's our main database. We're purging them every month. This one would, after these are written for that month, this one is going to now become just an archive. The new active archive is going to start that new month along with that database server if you're purging, let's say, a month. But right now we do not have an archive purge, no. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. One other question, is this dependent on MySQL or works just as well with, I think it means MS SQL cluster?
Yeah, works with
Either.
both. Absolutely. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, it works with Microsoft SQL or MySQL. You could have multiple, you know, Microsoft SQL servers that you want to point these to, or a single database. And like I said earlier, that single database, it's going to benefit you if you have 5 years, but let's say you never really searching past a year. We can archive that, so it's going to make your report just run a little bit faster because it's not going to need all that processing power, right? So,
Right.
absolutely. But if you're
Yeah,
using, and
go ahead.
you can mix. I believe that's actually I'm not sure.
I think you're going where I was going to comment.
Yeah,
Mix and
can you mix and
match.
match? I actually am not 100% sure if you can. That's a great question. Yes, you know what? I believe you can. If you wanted to spend, let's say you just have one Microsoft SQL server and you're like, you know what? I need some more servers, but we don't want to build a whole nother Microsoft SQL server. Well, we could spin up some OVAs, disable the Insight software and just keep MySQL running and point those to MySQL. And then create all the databases you want. You could spin up more servers with less resources depending on how much data you want to keep and what your auto archiving schedules is at. If you're going to keep a month, they're going to be smaller databases.
Awesome. Yeah, we're getting a couple comments about the retention. 5 years is needed. So for that, we would go keep forever and then just archive everything off.
Right. You can keep forever and then just archive. Now your primary database. Well, yeah. Yeah, you don't want to turn that on to like now, right? If you were starting a new server, then you could keep this for a day and then your archives are going to keep growing, right? But
Yeah.
you don't want to change that on an existing database that might have 5+ years on it, because then you'll lose that, right? And then it won't archive that old data. It's only going to start archiving that newer data.
Got it. Yep.
Might be something to ask our team about if we want to freeze some of this, or if they only want to keep 5 months or 5 years or 6 years or something like that, instead of just doing keep forever.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
could
we
be
can look
beneficial.
into
That could
that.
definitely, yeah, it definitely could be beneficial. That's a great question.
Right. One other question came in. What is the recommendation to archiving to optimize performance? In other words, what's our recommended? Is it monthly, quarterly? I guess it all depends on the customer's environment.
Yeah, that's going to change, per customer for sure. I think it's going to depend on how many phones and what your record count is going to be.
Right.
And we can, you let us know, and we can get on the phone with you guys and talk about what maybe we can set up wise when it comes to your record count and how much data you guys are actually going to be keeping. Because then we can take what you have now, separate it into monthly, and see how much data is actually being taken monthly.
Right. All right. That looks like all the questions that trickled in so far. I don't know if you have any more you want to show us, or
No, I went faster than I thought, I guess. I thought I had this whole thing, all the way down to 130, but
that's all right.
yeah.
Give it a couple more seconds here for any other questions that might come in.
Absolutely. Trying to think if there's anything we missed in here. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I know I threw a lot of information out there, but please let us know if you have any more questions regarding this, and if you're interested in the beta as well.
Yeah. I think towards the end of April, or middle to end of April, we're going to have another refresher on all the 13 features and enhancements. So if you think of any questions between now and then, you can always ask them there as well. All right.
Awesome.
I think that's it. I don't see anything else coming in. So
all right. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Want me to grab it, or?
Yeah, let me go ahead and stop sharing.
All right. All right. We got through Q&A. Awesome job with everything, Dre.
Thank you.
I do want to remind everyone about our Planet Verify, our new online community where you can connect with your peers and expand your knowledge of all things Verify. Plus, you may end up with some new drink recipes from the cantina. We've always got those going on. So it's also where you can sign up to be part of the upcoming EFT. All right, and so let's get to the winner. I clicked it a little bit too soon, but the winner of this week's gift card is Dan Mountain. Congratulations, Dan.
Congrats, Dan.
Your account manager will be in touch with you shortly to get that gift card to you. And one last thing, don't forget to join us next week. Dre will be back and joined by Matt Sykes to go over another new feature coming out in 13, which is UCCX Audible Alerts. You won't want to miss this one, as I'm sure Matt's got some good audio to entertain us with. He's always got something up his sleeve. So with that, I think we are done, and just want to Make sure you have a great rest of your week
Thank-
and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks,
Thanks
everybody.
for joining.